In this video, the discussion will be between a CEO and cybersecurity manager to talk about implementing a SIEM solution for an isolated network which will not collect it in real time. Cybersecurity Manager. Good morning, CEO. I wanted to talk to you about the importance of implementing a SIEM solution for our project. CEO. Morning. I appreciate your concern, but I have already considered the risk and I don't think it's necessary to invest in a SIEM system. Our project is isolated and we have taken appropriate measures to secure our network. I don't think we need to worry about cyber threats. Cybersecurity Manager. I understand your perspective, but even isolated networks can be vulnerable to cyber attacks. A SIEM solution will provide us with centralized logging, alerting and reporting capabilities, allowing us to proactively identify and respond to any potential threats in real time. CEO. I see, but real-time analysis is not possible in our current setup. So what's the point of having a SIEM system? Cybersecurity Manager. Even though real-time analysis is not possible, we can still collect and store logs from different sources and analyze them periodically to identify any anomalies or security incidents. Having a SIEM system in place will provide us with a complete picture of our network activity, which will help us to identify any potential security risks and respond promptly to mitigate the impact of any incidents. CEO. I understand the benefits, but can you give me a proposal including the cost, resources and other factors that we need to consider? Cybersecurity Manager. Of course. Here is a proposal for your consideration. The cost of implementing a SIEM solution varies depending on the size of our network and the number of sources we need to collect logs from. On average, a SIEM solution can cost between $100,000 to $200,000. In terms of resources, we will need a dedicated server to store the logs, a team of security analysts to manage and monitor the system, and a budget for software licenses and maintenance. CEO. That's a substantial investment. What are the potential returns on investment that we can expect from implementing a SIEM solution? Cybersecurity Manager. By implementing a SIEM solution, we can expect to improve our overall network security posture, reduce the risk of a security breach, and minimize the impact of any security incidents. Additionally, having a complete picture of our network activity will help us to identify any performance bottlenecks, which can be addressed proactively to improve the overall performance of our network. CEO. I see your point. Let me consider the proposal and get back to you. Cybersecurity Manager. Thank you for your time, CEO. I appreciate your consideration and I am happy to answer any additional questions you may have. Cybersecurity Manager. Mr. CEO, I understand your concerns, but I would like to emphasize that no network is completely isolated or immune to attacks. By investing in a SIEM solution, we are proactively protecting our assets and minimizing the risk of potential breaches. CEO. But what is the ROI on this investment? What is the potential benefit compared to the cost of implementation? Cybersecurity Manager. By having a SIEM in place, we can have a centralized and automated system for collecting, storing, and analyzing log data. This helps us to detect security incidents and respond to them in a timely manner, reducing the impact of a breach. Additionally, it can help us meet compliance requirements and improve overall security posture. In terms of cost, the exact budget will depend on the solution we choose, but it is important to consider the cost of a potential breach compared to the cost of implementation. CEO. I see your point. Can you give me a rough estimate of the budget we would need for implementation? Cybersecurity Manager. Sure. A typical SIEM implementation can range from several thousands to several hundred thousands of dollars, depending on the scale and complexity of the project. This includes the cost of the SIEM solution, hardware, licenses, professional services, and training. CEO. That's a substantial investment. Can you walk me through the resources required to implement this project? Cybersecurity Manager. Sure. The resources required will include dedicated cybersecurity personnel, hardware, and external support if needed. Additionally, we will need to allocate budget for training, as well as for ongoing maintenance and support for the solution. CEO. I see. Can you give me a timeline for implementation and any potential roadblocks that we might encounter? Cybersecurity Manager. The timeline for implementation will depend on the solution we choose and the resources we allocate. On average, a SIEM implementation can take several months, but this can vary. Some potential roadblocks that we might encounter include integration challenges with existing systems, difficulty in obtaining and normalizing log data, and budget constraints. CEO. Okay. I understand the importance of having a SIEM solution in place. Let's proceed with the implementation. But let's make sure to monitor the progress and assess the ROI regularly. Cybersecurity Manager. Absolutely, Mr. CEO. I will work with the team to ensure a smooth implementation and to provide regular updates on the progress and ROI. Thank you for considering this investment in our security posture. Cybersecurity Manager. Mr. CEO. I understand your concerns about the risk being low in an isolated network. However, implementing a SIEM can still provide us with numerous benefits. For instance, it will allow us to have a complete overview of all activities happening in the network, including any potential malicious activities. This can help us detect and respond to security incidents quickly, reducing the damage caused and minimizing the downtime. In addition, a SIEM can help us comply with various security regulations and standards, such as PCI DSS and HIPAA, which can have serious legal and financial consequences if not met. CEO. I see your point. But what is the budget you are proposing for this investment and what are the resources required to implement and maintain it? Cybersecurity Manager. For a comprehensive SIEM solution, we estimate a budget of around $100,000 to $200,000 per year, which includes the cost of hardware, software, licensing, maintenance, and staffing. In terms of resources, we will need a dedicated team of security analysts and engineers to manage the SIEM, analyze the logs, and create security rules and reports. We can also consider hiring third-party consultants for the implementation and integration of the SIEM. CEO. That's a significant amount of money and resources. Can you give me a rough estimate of the return on investment for this implementation? Cybersecurity Manager. Yes, of course. A SIEM implementation can result in reduced downtime and costs, improved compliance with security regulations, and increased efficiency and productivity. In addition, it can also provide us with better threat visibility and the ability to respond to security incidents more effectively. Overall, the ROI for a SIEM implementation can be substantial, but it depends on various factors such as the size and complexity of the network, the types of assets and data being protected, and the security requirements of the organization. CEO. I appreciate your thorough analysis and proposal. Let me consider it and get back to you soon. Thank you for your time and effort. Cybersecurity Manager. I understand your concerns, Mr. CEO, but implementing a SIEM solution, even if it's not real-time, can still bring a lot of benefits to our project. With a SIEM solution in place, we'll have a centralized repository of all the logs and it will be easier to search and analyze them. We can identify any security threats or vulnerabilities, and take proactive measures to mitigate them. CEO. Okay. Let's say we implement a SIEM solution. How much will it cost us? Cybersecurity Manager. The cost will depend on the SIEM solution we choose, but on average, A SIEM solution can cost between $10,000 to $100,000 United States dollars per year. But I've done some research and I think we can implement a SIEM solution within our budget, without sacrificing on the quality and features. CEO. And what about the resources we need to implement and operate the SIEM solution? Cybersecurity Manager. We'll need a dedicated server to store the logs, and we'll also need a security analyst or a team of security analysts to monitor and analyze the logs. The good news is, the maintenance team can extract the logs via USB and store them on the server, so we don't have to worry about that. CEO. Alright, I see your point. It looks like we can afford to invest in a SIEM solution and it can bring a lot of benefits to our project. Let's do it. Cybersecurity Manager. That's great, Mr. CEO. The next step will be to research and choose the best SIEM solution for our needs, based on our budget and requirements. Once we have a solution in place, we can start collecting and analyzing the logs and take proactive measures to ensure the security of our project.